Story 1. Always thinking about money too much to really enjoy myself during activities that cost or require money to be spent, such as road trips, vacations, bar outings, dining at restaurants with friends, going to a show, and so on. Story 2. Lately, I have noticed my life stresses affecting my conversations and how I respond to people. I think it has made me too crass and sometimes a jerk. That is not fair to those people. I am trying to work on it. Story 3. Being autistic, I never asked to be born with a disability, especially one that causes me so much emotional pain. I spend most of my time alone. I have no friends and have never been in a romantic relationship. I am miserable most days. Story 4. I am very obsessive-compulsive. I tend to ruminate a lot. I try to distract myself, but it does not help as much as I would like. Story 5. Having borderline personality disorder, I must maintain consistent therapy, medication, and the determination to get better. So far, it is going great, but on the other hand, I am plagued by complex post-traumatic stress disorder from my trauma. My back is halfway degenerative, so I am hanging in there. Story 6. Being poor growing up and then having to fully support myself since about sophomore year of high school. Higher education was not an option, although I tested very high. Eating and having a roof took priority. I did the whole bootstraps thing and was pursuing the American dream when a spinal injury in my mid-20s derailed that. I started all over again. I consider myself successful, but I have had to work so hard that I easily look 10 years older than my age. The grind is the worst part. Story 7. Got injured while in the military. Always in pain. Panic attacks that last more than 3 hours. Used alcohol to cope with everything. Now I just feel numb. Not much at all. Story 8. Somehow oblivious and too sensitive at the same time. Willing to do nothing indefinitely to avoid either side of the chart. Will pull something unexpected that makes others satisfactorily flabbergasted and amazed after already being categorized. Won't do it to make myself look better or to efficiently navigate a group problem, but just because I can. Story 9. 3 months ago, a doctor misdiagnosed an eye problem I was having, which left me permanently blind in my left eye. I am a 52-year-old female with no family or friends in the state where I currently live. I cannot drive and recently sold my sport bike because, as a rider for 33 years, I am no longer able to ride. The company I worked for as a sales representative fired me because I cannot drive. My mental illness has worsened significantly. I can only take baths because I have fallen in the shower twice. My balance is impaired, my confidence is completely gone, and I frequently run into things. I have never been scared of anything before, but now I feel completely scared and unsafe. Story 10. Having a speech disability is challenging. After more than 30 years of dealing with it, many people still think it is acceptable to make fun of or laugh at it. Those people are wrong. I am tired of being mistreated because my speech is not always fluent. If someone does not want to accept me because of my speech disability, they do not deserve to know me. Story 11. You have to live 2 lives. One to show the family that you live by their values to avoid breaking their hearts, and one to live as your honest self. Story 12. There is not a single person on earth who looks like me. It is as if I was born in a different place on earth. Story 13. Knowing you could be better and more positive about yourself, but you keep sabotaging your progress toward achieving the better mindset you desperately need. Story 14. Having a life-shortening illness and a young child whom I adore, I know that at some point he will lose me. It is heartbreaking to know he will have to endure that at a relatively young age. Story 15. I have selective mutism and it is very difficult. It is hard to make friends when the brain will not allow speaking. The words are known, but they just do not come out. Story 16. Thought I'd stop drinking, and it would have solved all my problems. It turns out I just got stuck sifting through a whole lot of undiagnosed trauma and mental illness without using alcohol as an escape from the challenge of fitting in. I make terrible art, but at least I found out what my hobbies are when I have nothing else to do. Mixed media abstract. I'll never know who I could have been if I admitted I liked the things I did when I was younger instead of drinking to fit in places I didn't really want to be. Story 17. Borderline personality disorder. I crave human companionship, But something about me pushes everyone away because of a deep-seated fear that I will be abandoned again. Story 18. Autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, bipolar disorder, substance use disorder. I struggle with these conditions and experience significant social anxiety. Story 19. I receive a $967 disability check. $819 goes for a room with no running water or toilet. I have a tumor in my left hand that is not covered for surgery by New York Medicaid. I have 2 large lumps in my right hand, which are cysts. My liver has a tumor that could rupture and cause internal bleeding if my stomach is hit hard enough. My left eye has no vision. I recently found out my heart has an electrical problem that could result in heart failure. Could stop beating suddenly, and I could die anywhere, even while walking in the street. Does anyone want to be me? Story 20. Caring too much. Empath. I would never choose to be different, but it hurts so much, sometimes. Story 21. I have severe social anxiety. I cannot handle social situations at all, and everyone thinks I am unfriendly just because I do not talk much. Story 22. I was morbidly obese as a child, and that physically damaged my body a lot. I know it may seem shallow, but I'm most upset about how it has affected my appearance. It's not something super obvious. You only see it when you know what to look for, but it has made me look a lot less attractive than I could. People often think of the obvious issues like loose skin and stretch marks, but I have always had a slightly jowly face and sunken eyes. I believe the weight affected how my face developed since childhood. I also have a very broad back, small breasts, and I feel my growth was greatly affected. I am much shorter than my family and have unusually small hands and feet. If you don't know what you're looking for, I might just look off. I am bitter because otherwise I would actually be very pretty. Instead, I appear below average even when I try my hardest. It's the wasted potential that affects me the most. That said, I am very grateful for how I look despite what I have shared. I can walk down the street without strange looks, and I no longer break furniture when I sit on it. My health, however, is terrible. My knees are badly damaged. Childhood obesity needs to be taken more seriously. Story 23. I am very selfish, and I start losing compassion the longer I live. I might just become heartless soon. Story 24. Honestly, I have a bit of a baby face, which makes it harder for other people to take me seriously sometimes. Story 25. I made a bad choice that caused a lot of anguish and pain to many people, and I am suffering horribly for that now, finding it hard to live with myself, just as badly or worse than when I was in prison. Nothing in life is more expensive than regret. If you are reading this, please be kind and decent to others. Story 26. Procrastination. I may receive an award for being number 1 in procrastination, but I will ask them to postpone giving it to me. Story 27. Financial trauma. I am not one to call everything trauma, but I do not know how else to say it. It is not just that I grew up poor. I have witnessed debt and constant financial betrayal in my own family. This made me very anxious around money and gave me a crippling fear of ending up poor or in debt, which is not helpful at all in managing, spending, or earning money. Story 28. I cannot digest anything. My stomach is very sensitive. I eat plain chicken, beef, and sweet potato in almost every meal. I avoid dairy, gluten, corn, potato, egg, onion, and plum. Story 29. I lost out on so much because of deeply neglectful parents, and it feels like I do not know how to be a person. Feels like I am so far behind and will never catch up. Story 30. I don't understand social dynamics. I used to be great socially. I knew what to say and when to say it. After my divorce, I lost it. I think I am the problem. I lost my self-esteem and my desire to even try. I don't know how to do it anymore without it being ridiculous. Story 31. I have multiple disabilities and generally struggle with many things because of them. Everyone in my family has some form of disability. I am not sure why my parents had me when my older brother has disabilities. Story 32. I am middle-aged, my knees hurt all the time, and my friends are starting to die. I may or may not actually get to retire one day. Story 33. My urticaria is very painful when I want to exercise. I manage, but I wish it were not a part of me. Story 34. Being hard of hearing. I am not deaf, but I still cannot understand or hear most people around me, and I dislike hearing aids. Also, for my age, most people do not expect traumatic hearing loss. It is frustrating. Story 35. I am relatively smart, moral, and decent looking, but have the social skills and emotional regulation of a toddler. I have spent years trying to improve but keep making the same mistakes at pivotal moments, leading to a relatively unhappy life. At least now I recognize this, but I still have no idea how to fix or manage it, resulting in a fairly lonely and unfulfilled existence. Story 36. I have multiple disabilities and cannot get a job in my field, so I had to settle for a minimum wage part-time job. I cannot get jobs in my field because I was potentially blacklisted by the Regional Health Authority due to issues related to my disabilities. I do not make enough to earn money. I break even every month. Story 37. How much I have self-sabotaged recently and affected others. I have become a terrible person over the last year, and it is something I never want to experience again. Story 38. Frequent back pain that you cannot do much about because even aspirin does not help since acetaminophen does not fix a genetic problem. And even if you did take aspirin, you would just start bleeding. Story 39. I tend to be a perfectionist. If something is not done exactly right or up to my standards, I see it as ruined and cannot allow myself to enjoy it as it is. Story 40. I am an athlete but hate my body and use disordered eating to comfort myself when I feel out of control. Story 41. I have never had a partner and I am in my mid-30s. This means I have never had sexual intercourse. I want it badly, but I do not want a one-night stand or a friends with benefits arrangement. I desire a relationship. Story 42. I care too much and get my hopes up too easily. Then I am left dealing with the aftermath of trying to please everyone or the emotional roller coaster I create myself. Story 43. I am autistic but was diagnosed too late to get help with the struggles. It is not a superpower. I am unemployable because I do not last long at any job. It is overwhelming. I want to work. I really do. The only thing I am good at is taking care of children. Unfortunately, to do that professionally, I have to work with other adults. Workplace politics always naturally leave me on the outside. I am a pretty good stay-at-home mother. I want to work now that my son is old enough to take care of himself reasonably, but I do not even make it past the interview stage. Story 44. I am so hard on myself. They tell me my mother set my bar unrealistically high. I believe I set it so high I cannot even attempt to reach it in a healthy way. Story 45. I suffer from a degenerative eye disease called retinitis pigmentosa. I am legally blind at age 44, but I still have to work full-time because I have children. Story 46. I have a world screaming at me and I'm half dead. I can't figure it out when I most need to, and I can't convince myself that reality is true or real even though I know it is. I just won't let it stick. Maybe it's the lifetime of nonsensical experiences that make little sense but comfort me like a second home. There are plenty, but it would be much worse to be someone else. Story 47. Every single thing, no matter how hard I work in this lifetime, I always seem to get treated unfairly with everything. Nothing can ever be perfect or go right. Something always has to go wrong. Some would say that's life, but no, not compared to others. Some people are born with a golden spoon or at least have a good family to support them. But if you're like me and don't have any of those things, life can be very difficult, as if the challenges weren't already bad enough. Life seems to pile more difficulties on you. Story 48. Schizophrenia, hands down. It is getting so bad that I often have problems telling what is real. Pure torture. Story 49. Both my parents are deceased. I am the youngest with two older siblings who constantly have issues and need financial help or mental support. I have been very depressed for years, but cannot share my feelings with family as it gets used against me. My husband of 18 years lacks empathy. I do not have any friends. I have become very anxious and experience social anxiety. I feel isolated because I live far from where I grew up and miss home. But my husband's job is more important. It is very isolating and lonely. I stay up late and cry while my husband and children sleep. This is not the life I dreamed of or want. I cannot remember the last time I was truly happy. Occasionally, when I am feeling good and in a good mood, it gets ruined by my husband commenting on it, like asking why I am in such a good mood or saying I seem like I had a good day. It is not his intention, but it gives me a gut-sinking feeling, and I end up fighting back tears because I then feel like I am not supposed to be happy or deserve it. Story 50. Having to plan even the smallest outings because your body is in such poor condition that it is a wonder you can remain alive. Thankfully, modern days offer modern solutions, but it still is difficult, especially when even feeling warm is a luxury. Story 51. How can I be someone blatantly honest about something and deeply rooted in my beliefs that I often come into conflict with people around me? Story 52. My sometimes crippling obsessive-compulsive disorder. Some days my tics are all-consuming, yet I also hold down a job and support a family. It is very hard sometimes. Story 53. Being an alcoholic, I am in recovery and it is actually going really well. However, right now my frontal lobe is impaired and my dopamine receptors are damaged. They will eventually recover, but alcohol severely affects these two areas. I am surprised by how little I miss drinking. I did not think I could do it. However, I am bored. Story 54. A mix of anxiety and bipolar disorder. Even when I am in that euphoric state, I still have too much anxiety to be social and do things. When the depressive episodes hit, they are severe. I am constantly on edge about dying, but also really want to die at the same time. Story 55. Seeing the world through what feels like a snow globe of eye floaters in almost every lighting condition. Story 56. Being bilingual causes me to forget words in both languages, making me sound unintelligent when trying to have a conversation. Story 57. What was the reason for this question? I read Reddit for amusement. This is all very sad. I wish I could help some of these people. I have some of the issues mentioned, so I look to Reddit for entertainment. These comments are all so sad. Story 58. Major depressive disorder and undiagnosed autism spectrum disorder have affected my life. I have not had friends my whole life, but I am barely functional enough for others to downplay my struggles. They say, "You went to college and have a job. You can't be that bad." Story 59. People assume too many things about me for some reason. It's crazy, and I'm not sure if it happens to other people. I could literally go shopping for some popcorn chicken and spark rumors just from that. It's ridiculous. Story 60. Not only are my circumstances bad, they are complex and require a lot of explanation. So whenever one of my life issues comes up, it feels like, here we go again. Story 61. Having to support my family due to their poor decisions. I am the youngest and help my mother and sister cover large portions of the rent. $2,000 monthly in total spent. I am comfortable but could do much more with an extra $25,000 in the bank to invest. Story 62. Being trapped in my head, I cannot stop thinking about what is wrong with me, what I do not like about myself, why I cannot be good at anything, thinking I am ugly, or why I did not say that smart thing. I wonder if I should not have said something or if I look stupid, why I act stupid, and I basically hate myself. The worst part about being me is being so focused and hyperfixated on all my flaws and insecurities. Story 63. I am 16 years old and 4 feet 11 inches tall. A doctor recently told me that this is probably my maximum height. People won't stop making comments. I wouldn't necessarily say I am being bullied, but I am incredibly tired of the remarks made about me. For example, when I am on stairs with friends, one of them will say, "Hey, look, this is the tallest you have ever felt." Or whenever a teacher makes a comment about something short people do, everyone just turns and looks at me. Story 64. I think I do not need to share too much about myself anymore. There are many untrustworthy people in this world. Story 65. A life completely devoid of romance or intimacy. But honestly, everything else is great, although that is a significant issue. Story 66. Anxiety and depression. When both occur simultaneously, I just want to stop existing. Literally. Story 67. I have trouble letting go of the things that I know are going to hurt me, but I hold on because of how much I love them. Story 68. Being so hateful of my own appearance that when I look at sections of my face they look normal, but when I look at my entire face, my brain distorts it. Story 69. I have damaged my health significantly, injuring my back to the extent that I am hospitalized for several weeks each year for pain management. I did not care about using protective gear while spraying crops and ended up ruining my skin. Now, I literally cannot stay more than 5 minutes in direct sunlight with my legs before blisters form, burst, and cause intense itching. What really frustrates me is that I cannot blame anyone or anything but myself, and I certainly do not go easy on myself. Story 70. Stressing and worrying about every tiny thing to the point I trigger my own migraine attacks for something that might not even affect me. I worry a lot about other people too. Maybe that is a good trait, but it does mean I tend to neglect myself at times. Story 71. Knowing exactly what my child would enjoy playing, mostly role-playing as thieves or adventurers, and feeling like I never have the energy for it. Story 72. Living with multiple sclerosis and 5 spine surgeries has made the last 20 years a torture. Not being able to trust one's own body from day to day, sometimes hour to hour, just sucks. Given I was young when it first appeared, it really derailed my professional aspirations. Keeping employment became nearly impossible. The safety nets are not really safe at all and severely lacking, requiring one to be destitute before even considering assistance. Now I constantly fear I could fall into homelessness again. For almost a full year, it was either my car or couches. Hurting all the time in one form or another, sciatic pain, neck issues, muscular spasms and cramping, neuropathic pain, and however else my body decides to interfere. To top it off, most people, even those who know what I am dealing with, seem to think it is a choice, as if trying harder would make it less of a struggle. I digress, but when even your own father, rest in peace, whatever differences or misunderstandings we had about this situation, sees you as a failure because surviving while chronically ill and disabled in America is almost impossible with the safety nets provided. It is especially difficult if you get afflicted at a relatively young age, since what you receive is based on how long you worked and what you paid in. I was just starting my professional life when I was diagnosed. To get on Social Security, they require you to be out of work for a full year. Otherwise, you cannot apply, and you cannot earn any income during the application process. It is truly frustrating. Anyway, I digress again. Just a living nightmare. So, being me in general is difficult. I like myself, but I hate my life, particularly the failing body I was given. Story 73. I have a very dry and dark sense of humor. I am only able to show my true self to a small group of people, and only after I have known them for months. Whenever I meet someone new or attend a social event with new acquaintances, I have to heavily filter myself because some of the jokes I make in a dry tone can be unappreciated by some. I carefully inch toward the boundary line bit by bit to learn each person's tolerance, constantly testing the waters. Story 74. Maladaptive daydreaming, rumination, and anxiety. I think it is partly why my memory is poor. I am too much in my head and not present in the moment to truly enjoy life. Story 75. Chronic illnesses are invisible but affect daily life and are not understood by anyone except fellow sufferers. Story 76. Oh boy, where do I start? Can't hold a job. Bad things happen to me at the worst possible times. Multiple mental illnesses. Medications that are supposed to help me end up making me feel worse or turn me into a psychopath. The thought of going to therapy makes me anxious. No friends. Single. Mom resents me. Can't really have hobbies because people will move, throw away, mess with, or use my stuff without asking, or I lose the pieces. Overweight. Unattractive without makeup. Sleep apnea. Possible endometriosis. High cholesterol. I live in a very remote area, so there's no way to meet anyone new. I'm a lost cause. Nothing and no one can fix or help me. I'm a worthless person who will spend the next 50 years being a waste of space until cancer or dementia ends my life. Pain, poverty, and suffering are all I'll know. I've given up on trying to be happy because when I do try, I end up disappointed. Maybe if I weren't overweight and unattractive with autism spectrum disorder, I would have a life. Story 77. Sensitive. Emotional. Not realizing I could have done things better until much later. Bottling things inside me until I snap and lose my composure. Overthinking everything excessively. Story 78. No matter how, no matter where, no matter with whom, they make me believe that I am useless for not knowing how to do things that others know how to do. Story 79. I have been unable to find a long-term relationship, despite seeking one for the last 10 years. Story 80. I'm very self-aware and constantly thinking about how people perceive me. I am also a people pleaser. This is because I was not taught to stand up for myself and I was bullied. Story 81. I have complex regional pain syndrome, mast cell activation syndrome, and post-traumatic stress disorder. But I am not sick enough to qualify for actual help. I function like a normal human in a society that does not work for my body, and it is slowly destroying my health, but I cannot do anything about it. Story 82. Not having enough tolerance and patience with friends and family, but still being very outgoing and wanting to be around people. Story 83. Imposter syndrome affects everything I do. I have a doctorate but worry about making mistakes every second. I constantly worry about every error I could be making. I recently started painting, and now every time I look at something I have created, it looks awful to me, even if people around me think it looks good. Story 84. I have a lot of wonderful people in my life. People who love me, a wife who adores me and whom I adore, beautiful children and friends. However, I cannot shake this dreadful feeling that I am going through life alone. I feel lonely even when I am surrounded by loved ones. Story 85. Being unattractive, disabled, and seemingly unable to receive any positive attention from the opposite sex. Story 86. Being a person with a high capacity for love, I really do not understand it, as some others have told me. How can I still hold so much love in my small body? I dislike that. It is difficult. Story 87. I likely have early rheumatoid arthritis. Getting a doctor to believe me is hard, just because my blood work shows no signs. Every few months, a new joint loses mobility or becomes painful. Occasionally, organs can be attacked by my own immune system. It even happens to my right eye on occasion, and I have to use immune response suppressing eye drops to prevent serious damage. It also makes me absolutely exhausted from just standing 4 or 5 hours a day. I have been doing a lot better since losing a lot of weight. I just want the medication that will give me my normal pain-free life back and restore my original energy levels. But healthcare is hard. Story 88. Damn. Being 40 and still talking to myself like I am a piece of shit. I know I am not, but it is the default setting in my brain. I have autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, severe endometriosis, and a severely overactive thyroid. Being exhausted all the time is the worst and so hard to deal with. Story 89. Being on the farthest end of the scale and nobody believing it. I'm not trying to invoke pity. It's just an annoyance. It sucks, and that's the question. For example, I grew up in a very abusive household. I never thought much of myself and allowed myself to be in abusive relationships. Yes, I'm better now, but my youth is gone, and so is my beauty. I will always be single. My mother was drunk in a car accident with me in the car when I was young, and I sustained brain damage. I can function. I can take care of basic tasks like wiping myself and making sandwiches, but I will never have a career or anything like that. I will always be poor. I can't just get a trade job, go back to college, earn an extraordinary amount of money, or be an entrepreneur. I have many chronic illnesses and physical disabilities that keep me from doing most things. The list goes on, so basically, in every aspect of life, I am at the lowest end. It's not that I don't try. I claw and struggle all the time. While I may mention things like my abusive past and illnesses, these are not topics that come up in everyday conversation. Yes, people see me in my wheelchair, but people who use wheelchairs can still do many things. Without going further into it, I constantly get blamed for not being a billionaire, having everything perfect, being happily married with many children, a white picket fence, a beach house, and whatever else people think makes them happy. They assume it's all my fault, that I'm lazy, making excuses, And that's why I'm not a billionaire with a private jet and an island to play golf on. No other possibility is ever considered. This is something I deal with every day of my life. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.